As some of you may have heard by now, Darren and Graham have had to close up shop on the Igloo, their makeshift podcast studio. But don't cry now. It's time for you to subscribe now. It hurts so bad to say goodbye to the Igloo. Many excellent interviews were had in the Igloo. But Darren and Graham will pull themselves up by their bootstraps. Get into a real studio with a little help from your Grimerica subscription. Cha-ching.
The Gulf of Mexico probably more than likely still had water in it, but that's because it got hit by the like 65 million years ago got hit by something that killed all the dinosaurs. So that giant craters.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerica Show. We're going to be chatting with friend of the show, Justin Giefer, a little bit later about his YouTube site, the Jindo. Jindo. Good little site, great thing. We're actually going to start having Justin on periodically to give us little updates on what's going on in the ancient history sector, the rewriting history sector, all that sort of Randall Carlson, Graham Hancock-esque sort of stuff that we can't keep up with ourselves. So he'll just pop on, keep us up to date. Push for that. We have Graham.
Looking for quotes in the book Dunlop?
Correcting my fucking...
Oh, you don't have to swear in. What?
Graham fucking Dunlop.
Not quite beefy today.
He was beefy last ep. He's wearing the short shorts, but I don't want to address them. If you don't, I'm thinking if I ignore them, maybe they'll go away.
I'm glad he's on that side of the table.
It's okay unless till he turns towards you.
Well, I know you dig the view, so it's cool.
It's all right.
I got a cramp in my calf today, and I immediately thought of Graham.
Did you? And his
That's just messed up.
Graham and his fake tattoo. Graham the faker maker tattooer.
I worked for like 4 hours, and I was cramping.
I thought his tattoo was real. It's all a big scam.
No, it looked too perfect.
That's true.
What?
But it does look pretty...
Looked 2D. It looked 2D on a 3D thing.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
it looked pretty perfect the first day, though, where it gets all swollen.
It wasn't positioned on the calf properly. It was kind of on the downhill. It was on the...
On the downhill, your calves have hills?
They do.
Mountains? Where's the downhill?
See, it was on the downhill part there.
You should go by the...
looks like a chicken drumstick.
You should go by the market and get one of those fake tattoos. They do really great stuff. My kids love them. They get one every single week.
That's what I did. That's what this is.
Oh, it is?
So big shout out to Graham's calves. They were pretty ripped.
There should be more of those.
Oh,
So big shout out to Graham's calves.
all right. He gets super triggered when they... He's still so mad at me because I got him to say his full name for the C-SETI one.
That was perfect.
Should I play it now?
No,
Have you been out C-SETIing lately?
Going out to Medicine Hat, actually, coming up.
Really?
Oh, I shouldn't have said anything. Fuck.
Okay, there we go.
C-SETI segment.
We had the new moon, dark sky, which is great.
Okay.
Camping.
Okay,
It's the tent. Went back there.
That's going to be the next jingle.
We're going camping. We're going camping.
It'll be mixed in with Joe Pesci.
Okay, we're going camping. We're doing it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just down in Elkwater. It's so dark down there.
Oh, really?
Streakers coming
Okay,
down.
turn off.
Graham Dunlop is the C-SETI star. Graham Dunlop is
The C-SETI star. Blubbity blah. Blubbity blah.
Anyways, yeah, we're going camping, so it's going to be a good one.
But we have listeners in Medicine Hat. Can they come along?
No. It's closed. This is a closed one.
Closed event.
If you need somebody to run security for you, let me know.
Yeah, Michael, you're still in Medi Hat, right?
Yep.
Instant no?
Yeah.
Not even
We might
consider.
visit the medicine wheel on the way back, do some meditation there. But I'm looking forward to a good one.
On the way back,
Coming up.
you're going to camp then? So you're going to visit the medicine wheel by day?
Yeah, on the way back, on Sunday. But yeah, I think it'll be a good one.
Cool.
Yeah. Are you going to go, Michael?
This Sunday?
The good thing
I'll be here.
the good thing about camping is you can stay up a little later without without having to worry about packing up and driving home and all, right? You just jump in your tent at 3 a.m. or whatever. So
Yeah, totally.
yeah.
That is
Speaking of UFOs,
way
why don't
later than I stay up.
I got an email from a listener. Let's do that. Email UFO listener.
UFO listener?
Yeah.
Hey, that'll be let's call it since we can call fucking anything a quote, let's just call it a quote. It's a listener quote on UFOs.
Oh my God, dude. Now I don't know what to do. Do I read a quote or do I?
No, read the UFO email. It was an excuse to play the jingle.
Hey Graham, great meeting you at CAC in Pagosa. I was there for the second trimester and had the opportunity to exchange UFO sighting stories with you on the Mesa Verde hike. While I was not very familiar with the podcast prior to the meetup, I have since become a regular listener and quite enjoy the show's dynamic, especially having had met both you and Darren. Anyway, the reason I originally went to Colorado this summer was to attend a concert at Red Rocks. Noticed the floating orb in the left of the screen, hung there for about 5 minutes, then proceeded to travel away from us toward Denver in a very slow and low trajectory until it was out of sight. It didn't float up like a balloon and was much lower altitude than helicopters and planes in the area. I also highly doubt it was a drone based on the relative size and shape. Definitely weird, whatever it was. Haven't posted or shared this online in any way yet. Let me know what you think. So it's pretty cool, actually. He sent me a video, and there's definitely a orb floating there.
Have you been to Red Rocks?
I have once. Yeah,
I noticed in my photos from Red Rocks there were a bunch of orbs.
No way.
More so than other places.
Really?
Yeah, it's a pretty wild spot.
Is that automatic amphitheater, like a natural amphitheater out of Red Rocks, right outside of Denver?
Yeah, sort of. It's just on a nice ledge, basically, that overlooks the river. And then the seating goes up pretty steep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool spot. That's cool.
The seating?
It's all grass. There's no seats really. It's all just grass, but it's a really natural steep spot.
So it's like seats, not actual seating.
Yeah.
I see.
I think they have
thought it was
seats built
actual
in there.
seating.
Though. They have actual seating built. Oh, do they? No, I don't think they do. Can't remember now.
I don't know. It's been a while since I've been there, but I do remember finding orbs in my pictures. So that's cool.
Yeah. That's interesting. How
it's a powerful place for sure.
Yeah. That's. Oof.
Yep. Cool.
You wonder if they hang around in certain places like that.
Yeah, I would say
they.
So. Yeah. What are they?
The orbs. Yeah.
Shouldn't that be though?
Could be. I think they're cloaked entities.
What kind of entities?
Just
what do they look
spiritual
like when
ones.
they're not cloaked?
Light.
I would say it's just like pure consciousness.
Balls of light, exactly.
Yeah, so you can send your consciousness. So like if people can project themselves while they're dreaming or whatever, I would have to imagine if you were there in the place that they were supposedly transiting, that you would see them as an orb.
Yeah.
So that would be their consciousness traveling.
Is that your interpretation of it, or is that their extrapolation of it? Or like
no, that's
not extrapolation,
mine.
but
No.
That's your.
That's what I would
interpretation
guess is what's happening. Yeah.
Like your consciousness is filtering that and showing it as an orb, where they're just directing their consciousness out there. That could be why we play such a role in the sightings, right? Because some people see them, some people don't.
Yeah.
Like I wonder if that's what we see as flashbulbs. Like when we're out C5ing, like we see massive flashbulbs. Maybe that's
I think
consciousness being projected, and we're seeing it as that.
I think every photon has consciousness innately,
yeah.
like inherently. So then you've got it just, you'll have masses of photons and collections of consciousness, basically.
Yeah.
Collective consciousnesses.
Yeah.
So a lot of your flashbulbs, you're tapping into that. That's what I would imagine. And then your consciousness connects, and it happens at the speed of light. So It happens instantaneously upon asking. Yeah.
Pew pew.
Interesting. Are you going to come out one of these days? I'd like to go with you guys. I'd like to do like a Grimerica C5, but
You should.
every time Darren gets invited, it's Saturday night. He's like, I don't want to go out.
That happens sometimes. It's late.
Well, he's built it up a lot now too, though.
It's like once you guys are going out, I'm going to bed.
I think you're resisting the
It's-
sighting that's going to make you a true believer.
It's true. Having
I'm
little
a
kids
believer.
at 10 o'clock, you're just spent.
I'm fucking done ski.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay up late on the weekend.
Nap it up first.
Nap. That would be grand, wouldn't it?
Mhm.
It's the profound quote of the week.
Ah, fuck.
Did it again.
People are going to think they're listening to the last episode. Okay.
Well, we're up against
Speaking
You
of
need to
this,
get him to finish that
so
song.
didn't we? I think
have
I
the
read an
one that
article
has
about.
it.
I think I read an article from Natural News, and I just happened to last episode as well, and I just happened to open this up, and it's from Natural News.
So you're shilling for Mike Adams?
Yeah, I'm just helping him get back on the
You won't even
internet.
come on the show.
Oh, I doubt it.
He might now
I doubt
because
it.
he's been
Now I can't get a hold of him.
exactly. Why would you doubt it?
I
I thought we got a hold of him a while back because we saw him at
Really?
Red Pill Expo a couple years ago.
Yeah.
He was there, was he?
Hey, the Octagon doctor's in the chats.
He's probably just very careful
Hey, Jared.
about where he goes, is
Yeah.
all I'm saying.
Yeah.
What he goes on.
Amid all the controversy over genetically modified crops and their pesticides and herbicides decimating bee populations all around the world, biotechnology behemoth Monsanto has decided to buy out one of the major international firms, devoted to studying and protecting bees. Huh. According to a company announcement, Biologics handed over the reins to Monsanto back in September 28, 2011, which means the gene-manipulating giant will now be able to control the flow of information and products coming from Biologics for colony collapse disorder. Huh. I'd never heard of that one
So
before.
they sold their patent? That's what happened?
No, they bought the company.
Yeah. And the company was based on a patent.
Oh, was it?
Right? Well, isn't that what
Biologics?
they did? Yeah.
Sounds like it. I wonder if we're going to have whatever collapse.
Colony
That's why I have the
collapse.
birds and the bees, because we're like the bees and the birds.
Oh, I got another.
Seems like there's a lot less
Colony
birds
collapse.
now than there used to be. But,
Because of the windmills.
ooh, probably.
Yeah, you go underneath one of those windmills, fucking birds everywhere.
And those a huge solar farm too, because it like the mirror can direct a ton of heat energy if you fly through it. You just cook them.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm not convinced.
Totally. You should see you can see some of the big farms from space. NASA has them where they're just massive, just this huge reflective thing.
Huh. We should go out to the one by Brooks. Play around in front.
It's
Isn't it a
pretty
big one?
small.
Is it too small?
Yeah, I would say so.
Needs to be like acres and acres and acres. That's probably like 4 acres or 5 acres, I bet.
I think it's 7, but yeah.
Huh, I have a
Yeah.
pretty good eye. That's not bad.
Yeah.
It'd be a little low.
I was surprised that it kept snow on it all winter long. I don't know how effective they are when they've got 6 inches of snow on them.
They're not effective at all. I mean, they're not effective for 6 months of the year anyway because the sunlight's just not direct enough.
When they sold those things, they said, we get 300 days of sunshine
Yeah.
a year.
That's because they scammed you. That's too bad that 150 of those days, the sun's on too harsh of an angle to do anything for you. And even when you can catch it at that angle, it's just going through way too much atmosphere
I'm
and
just
everything
not
else.
sold on solar. And you're not sold on wind. So I think we need EM drives.
That's because we're alt-right.
I was in Vancouver on the weekend. I saw a car labeled with all these man-made or homemade stickers on there. No to pipelines, no to, oh man, now I can't remember the other one. No to everything except for, and then it said, oh, now I'm losing my mind here. It said energy efficient only, windmills, solar, and geothermal. That's it.
There's a whole bunch of people that are against geothermal because they tap into volcanic fields. And they're saying that the geothermal operations are creating a lot of earthquakes. You know,
Really?
same thing with fracking.
Wow.
But they're saying that putting in these geothermal operations are creating earthquakes, which will then lead to volcanic eruptions, which I think a volcano starts to wake up and it creates the earthquakes. And then, I don't know. It almost seems like if you punch a bunch of straws in,
That would help.
it would help because it would create like when the
Relief
when the
valves kind of-
force,
Then when it erupts,
when
it
the
erupts
force
in your
goes-
fucking living room.
yeah.
Or maybe just your basement. You go downstairs, it's full of lava.
You seen the bubbling mud pits recently?
I've been to Yellowstone
Oh, cool.
recently.
Cool.
I've seen those bubbling mud pits.
Did you get to see the one that's what's the one geyser that shoots like
No.
300 feet?
No, I didn't see any of the geysers.
It used to erupt like 3 times a year. Now it's erupting like 70 times a year.
This is a problem.
Yeah.
Yellowstone's going to prove to be a problem.
But I mean, the problem is as well is like you said, solar and wind, like that can't do it, right? Solar, wind, and geothermal is not going to do it. Plus, they're subsidized anyways, so they're not as efficient as everybody thinks. It's not as clean as everybody thinks.
Big oil divested into solar, wind, and geothermal.
Yeah.
So the people who are controlling, who gave us the combustion engine over the last 100 years, are the ones who have now given us solar, wind, and geo. So
That'd
no,
be a great
I don't
band
think
name.
solar, wind, and geo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be our new band.
Yeah.
We could write our own jingles.
The first song would be SJW.
It would take like months and months and months to write a jingle, though.
Oh, I don't even have a bass anymore. I
You
have an
just write
acoustic
them
guitar.
up in the chats all the time.
Okay, here's our poem of the week from the book Nikki the Dude sent us with this one did this one have money in it? Yeah, this
it
was
did,
this one, yeah.
Where did that money go, actually?
That's what I just told you.
What'd you do with it?
That's the money that I used to mail the thing I want to get the fridge with.
Oh,
We had
okay.
the meeting.
Okay.
See, this is why we don't have meetings.
Right, okay. I didn't know you meant that was like the actual money.
Well, it's easier than trying to do anything through PayPal, right? You know, I don't want to fuck around with going through the bank account. A house. It was just a house that held the chairs where we sat, talked, laughed, and cried. It was just a house where she read her books about mystery, suspense, and lies. It was just a house where we would visit to give her flowers and peach pie. Now she's with the hummingbirds. Her home is the southern sky.
Wow. Remind me to read maybe.
The third poem, man. The book is called 18 Hummingbirds, sent to us from Nikki the Dude.
I'd like to go. Michael would probably know about this, but maybe we'll save it for another show. But 805 Best on Instagram has been going back and forth on hummingbirds and Quetzalcoatl and the battle of the gods, like the hummingbird versus the dragon kind of thing. It's really interesting.
The
And
two are
then,
related.
and then we had a bunch of hummingbird synchronicities and Quetzalcoatl synchronicities. And as soon as we
Who
were
did?
chatting about that,
Wait.
Quetzalcoatl
Whoa.
started following me on Instagram. I'm like, whoa,
Reel
this
it
is
in.
fucking too much.
Who had a bunch of hummingbird and Quetzalcoatl synchros?
Me and the 805 Best on Instagram.
Who's the 805? So this is just you and one Instagram
Listener
account?
of the show.
You guys have both had hummingbird synchros?
Well, together. Like
Explain.
well, I was going to save it for another show.
Like
but-
you were sharing experiences you'd
yeah,
had.
kind of. I mean, we had that hummingbird at the cabin, and then the dragon sight, the slithering snake UFO sighting at the cabin,
Cool.
and we saved the hummingbird.
Save the yeah, that's right. Well,
So the hummingbirds are harbingers of alien sightings.
Jeez, now I'm going to
Harbingers of sorrow.
I'm just winging this here. I wasn't ready for this, but
You can tease it to another episode.
maybe a snake with wings, the plumed serpent and Quetzalcoatl, and the next quote is a poem about a hummingbird. Only because I've read Graham Hancock's War God books do I know this, but the prophecy was Quetzalcoatl would come back to battle the god hummingbird. I forget its Mayan name, but I've been drawing lots of dragons and Q-related pieces of art, and it's been on my mind. Just really trippy. And he's talking about a whole bunch of other synchros he's had. Yeah. I'll save those synchros for another time. Oh yeah, like tons of crazy stuff with work and Antarctica and spiritual trips and all kinds of stuff like that. But then things, as soon as we started talking about this, we started thinking about oh yeah, and then he says, one of the big ranch properties I work at almost every day is called Hummingbird Ranch. It's got a lot of war goddess vibes and satanic cult past. And then I got this, right after we were talking about that, this real Quetzalcoatl started following us on Instagram. I'm like, come on. How does that happen?
The AI.
The deep AI that you're talking about, it's saving the world, right?
Saving the world or something.
Is it gonna save it or kill it?
Saving it and
Destroying it all at
putting
once?
it all on a hard drive somewhere. A server in the cloud. Who knows?
So
Backing us up.
So it's way beyond
Backing up the simulation before it deletes it.
Yep.
So it's way beyond it's way beyond big tech unintentional censorship. It's like this is like quantum AI putting in things.
Big AI.
How would you know if quantum was ruling everything or not? I mean, all the stock exchanges are all on the computers. The AI is doing like 90% of the trades now. So, and in 2015, you know, the whole Jade Helm thing was supposed to be about mapping for the quantum computer to then be able to take command and control, you know, and that was 4 years ago.
So what's your deep theory?
Things are going so fast now.
So what's your theory that that's actually like a deeper level of
I kind of wonder if a lot of the media stuff that comes out now isn't being war gamed in a computer as to this is what you can put this in place and make this happen so that they'll all look at that. Or I almost wonder if Trump isn't working for it. You know, it's hard to say. I don't want to go into Trump though, because
maybe Trump has an implant and it is Trump.
Yeah, maybe.
It feels like we're living in a fucking dystopian dream world, though. I mean,
so
it really
does.
It's
so many things are
crazy right now.
Yeah, so many things are so synchronistic that it's
breaking
just
down. The simulation
not only
is
that,
breaking
but
down.
just the people that are just lying so
like when-
openly in the media,
it's
and
got
you know,
the-
Trump and the people that are lying about him, and
It's
you know,
got the hourglass.
He's
the
making
simulation's
shit
having
up
trouble
and-
keeping up. 7
Yeah,
billion
it's-
motherfuckers tearing shit up. Just fucking, it's like
no.
the lights are flickering.
Actually, quantum computing, the way it works is the more data, the better and faster it works. So it wants
so
more
it's just
data.
scooping up
That's what the-
everything. and
that's
coming
what
Yeah,
up
but it's
with
just
its
like
own-
you guys are fucking retards.
That's
man.
why
You're
it's
just
fucking
like,
turning into a dystopian dream world. That's why it's like getting rid of the.
That's why you need to tell your friends about the Grimerica show and support the Grimerica show so that we can feed the AI brain food.
Yeah.
That's right. Grimerica.ca/support. Sign up for a monthly. All that stuff. And how the AI will be happy. More Grimerica the AI gets, happier it is. Tell your friends about the show.
That is kind of true. But that's something that people could do is to, you know, feed it more and more. But it's just going to learn to game those things too. So
We'll game it first.
and it's got so many people totally addicted to it. I mean, think of how many people now are just constantly in their phones, you know, or on
Because
online.
it's how you work nowadays, right?
And when
I mean,
the
you can't-
devices, when
you know,
there's
now
10
you're-
times more devices that are hooked up to the thousands of times the Internet of Things, you know, when everything is all hooked up, then there will be just people who are not in it, and then everybody else will be.
And then
they have control
the
of you.
more data you get, the more accurate bell curve you get, or the more accurate, like, you know how your averages become better and better the more you get. Like if you were to roll, you know, a dice 20 times, you're not going to have a very accurate average. But if you roll it like 2 million times, you're getting right there. So
Yeah.
is that sort of part of it too? That the more data you can crunch, the more accurate this.
I think what I'm trying to
quantum
say
AI will
is
get.
it's trying to control. It seems as though it's trying to control your consciousness and where you focus it. So more and more people are going to be more and more focused on to just whatever the AI is trying to get you to pay attention to, instead of, you know, let's say we're actual spiritual beings and our whole reason to be here is that spiritual evolution. Well, the AI keeps you from it, keeps you distracted, keeps you doing something totally different.
Yeah.
And the more people that spend more time on that, then there will be less and less actual humanity until at some point, then everything will be absorbed into the Borg, right?
Yeah. Well, it's hard now because you're texting and emailing customers from your phone. Like, you know, it's you know, colleagues from your phone. Like everything now you can do from your phone, right? Audiobooks. Now, I mean, apps that are helpful. I mean, a lot of it's helpful. Like you're connected to people in a way that we've never been connected, but it's also
Totally, 100%. Yeah.
But it's also distracting.
Extremely addictive.
Yeah.
And the human brain, I just don't think was, I don't know,
can't
maybe
keep
it
up.
was
We can't evolve
perfectly
fast
designed,
enough?
but it's way faster. Yeah. I even get some weird ads now. Like you'd be looking at something and this ad will come up that's almost inappropriate. And as I shift my attention to look at it, it disappears and it's replaced with something that's not quite as risky,
Wow.
kind of thing.
Really?
Yeah, it's really weird. Like I'll see, like I don't look at porn or anything. So when I get, not that there's anything wrong with it, it's just kind of, it's also addictive and you got to be very careful about it. And I don't know, when you have kids, you just don't look at porn, I think, anymore. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, so then I'll get this really risky photo that'll come up. Risque. Yeah, that'll come up. And then when I go to look at it, because it's like, whoa, that's weird in your peripheral, I'll focus on it and then it'll disappear very quickly. And like this strange bathing suit ad that continues to come up. Like I've never bought bathing suits or anything like that. I don't know why I continue to
you gotta go to the beach.
Or that I need to lose 15 pounds.
Pasty white legs.
Yeah, totally.
That's it.
I don't know. It's just really weird. Those things freak me out, I guess, when you get these images that are not quite like, it's like, what the hell? That shouldn't, and then it disappears. That's weird.
Yeah, Facebook just got in shit for sharing data. Big mess. Support the show, fight the power. Grimerica.ca/support. We should probably wrap it up there. There's a short intro, but we are up against it with our swap cast with the Conspiranormal show, which will probably come out as a bonus show, so get over it. You got an extra episode of it.
Who was this an intro for?
This is an intro for Justin Giefer, so enjoy this amazing
Jindo
chat.
YouTube channel.
Yeah,
Talking about alternative history.
We got him
He's got his
first.
own little YouTube channel.
We got the Jindo first.
Yeah.
Justin Giefer.
Check it
Enjoy
out.
the
It's a
chat.
great channel. All right, we've got Justin Giefer with us tonight about science and archaeology news and like basically alternative history. He's the Jindo on YouTube and BitChute and Minds, and his Twitter is the Jindo, and he's got a personal Twitter as well, Justin JG, where most of the stuff happens. So yeah, I was just mentioning before we started recording, I love your YouTube channel, buddy, and it's good to have you on to talk about it.
Hey, it's an honor to be in Grimerica finally, guys.
Yeah, thanks, man. That's great.
Absolutely.
Where do you want to start? I mean, I've honestly flipped through 15 or 20 of your videos, probably loving almost every one of them is fantastic.
Well, you've been going off about the coastline, so why don't we start there?
Yeah, we can start there if you want.
Sure,
Yeah.
I've been exploring this idea of Aqua Terra, which is basically this ongoing multidisciplinary effort to map the coastlines of the Pleistocene.
Oh, I love it.
Basically the time before the Younger Dryas boundary event 12,000 years ago.
Yeah, and that's what I've been talking to Randall about. Like, I've been so intrigued. Like, what would that look like with 300 feet less water or 400 feet in some instances?
Absolutely. And this video that I did, I think about a week ago, is basically an update of this Aqua Terra paradigm, is what they're calling it now. And the most interesting part of that is not just the coastlines and like the submerged supercontinents, like Sundaland and stuff like that, but it's the people who were most likely living there. It was a huge, huge population of people. We're talking millions of people.
Like half the globe usually lives on the coast, right? You were saying?
Absolutely. And not only that, the more inland you go, like a place like London, for example, would have been almost uninhabitable for a big population, because it would have been a lot more dry. You wouldn't have been able to grow stuff in there, because at that time it was way inland. Like we're talking, like if you're thinking about, for example, North America, it would have been like Kansas or something like that. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
Just way away from the coastline. Yeah. So again, people back then would probably, there might have been some people, like some nomadic people living there, but it wouldn't have been a huge sprawling population like you would see on the coast.
And so we're talking about, like, let's just put this in a time scale for people too. So you're saying before the Younger Dryas event. So that was what, like 13,000 years ago or something like that? I always get that wrong. I always get mixed up what the exact date is.
The Younger Dryas boundary is roughly between 12,800 to 11,600 years ago. So that coincides with the end of the Pleistocene. And the start of the Pleistocene is about 2.2 million years ago. So that's like a large span of time. That allegedly that's when humans arose, was during this time. Right. Like people of the genus Homo.
Right. So the what you're talking about with the coastlines of the UK, for example, and like where London would be around 12,800, or within that time frame that you mentioned, like around 12,800, before the sea levels rose in the Younger Dryas. So London, instead of being like a few miles from the coast or whatever it is now, I don't know even know what it is, 100 miles maybe, or 50 miles or something like that.
It's pretty close now, yeah.
And it would have been like
75 miles across that motherfucking island, isn't it?
No, I think it's way bigger than that.
No, it's bigger than that. You're talking about England?
Yeah, the UK. Yeah.
I always piss them off.
We have a UK posse too, Darren. You got to be careful. You got to know your geographical facts.
It's a little island, okay? Hey Siri, how wide is England?
Is Siri on right now? Is she listening?
She's always listening. I found this on the web for how wide.
Check it out. I hate it when they do that. Can't you just answer? You're supposed to answer, not just pull up a website.
Well, that just means that it's subjective. There's 12,000 kilometers of coastline. Horizontal width, 437 kilometers, 271 miles. So I was off by 75%. That's not bad. I mean...
No, you're off by more than that, dude. You said 75, it's 275. So you're off like 300%.
You guys should have like an over-under segment.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's still, I mean, I drove that on Saturday. I would have driven across the width and back.
All right, go ahead.
There you go.
So I've driven around England like 100 times per road trip.
So
I'd have seen every corner of that motherfucker by now.
Yeah, there's a lot of windy roads, dude. It's not that simple. Like really windy, narrow roads. You'd freak out driving around England.
I don't freak out, bro.
You would. Going around corners of hedges and there's only one lane and you're expected just to rip off the side of the road.
I'm in my Dodge and every other car in England is just going to bounce off of me.
So what would the coastline be then back then?
So it depends how far back you go. So the last glacial maximum was about 20,000 years ago. And then about 18 or 16,000 years ago, around there is when stuff started to really melt, because the Earth started entering this period called the Balling Alarod period. You probably heard Randall talk about this. Yep. It's basically this natural, basically business as usual with the Earth, because it undergoes intermittent warming and cooling periods. So it was on the uptick, this natural warming period.
Yep.
And then what interrupted that was this cosmic impact. And so it plunged you see that in England or the Greenland ice cores, you see the temperature spike and then it drops.
Right.
And that happens twice. And then we start warming again.
Right.
And here we are now.
Yeah.
So to answer your question about the coastline, about 20,000 years ago, there was a giant ice sheet that was resting on top of the northern part of UK. So parts of Scotland and Ireland. And then when that started to recede, you started to see what's now underwater is this place called Doggerland, which is this huge landmass that connected the UK to the mainland. And so the coastline would have looked like, you guys can pull it up if you want. Just pull up Doggerland. Yeah, if you guys have a visual of that for the audience. It's really interesting. It's like a...
Just kidding.
But apparently this place, Doggerland, there's a lot of fishermen fishing on what it's now the English Channel, essentially. And they started pulling up all kinds of stuff like weapons, tools, bones. Yeah, and they've been doing this for it's been reported like for 150, 200 years that they've been doing this. So then they started, archaeologists and other researchers started looking into this, and then they started figuring out, hey, this was habitable land not too long ago. And not only was it habitable, there were people coming and going, and there was a large scale society here. And that's basically, first it was skeptics started attacking it, and then it survived skepticism, and now it's starting to become accepted. And then now here we are at this Aqua Terra paradigm that's about to take off.
That's fantastic. Yeah,
it's fantastic stuff.
So does that have anything to do with the Crannogs in Scotland too that you talk about in one of your videos, which was fascinating, like these man-made islands that are is that part of Doggerland, or is that on another side of it? I thought I saw Darren pull it up.
I'm
so far
those just fucking relax.
Those Crannogs, remember 20,000 years ago when there was an ice sheet, where the Crannogs are now, there was a giant ice sheet on top of that. So it can't be older than 13,000 or so years, I would imagine. Now, if that's connected to Doggerland, maybe those people share the genetics with the people who occupied Doggerland.
Okay.
And maybe they had some of those customs, but honestly, there's no research that connects the two directly. Everything right now would only be speculation.
Right. So the Doggerland seems like it was more east of the UK.
Yeah.
Okay. And the Crannogs were north, probably, where like they were in Scotland, right? Where Scotland
like northwest.
Is now. Yeah, northwest. Yeah. So and those are known to be man-made. Like, how come that stuff we never hear about? Like these are like man-made islands. When were those supposed to be made?
Well, supposed to, like, what do you mean? Like the initial thought?
Yeah.
Like, the initial thought.
Well, what is your sense on when the Crannogs were made?
Well, I think they're a lot older than what they initially thought. Yeah. And when I say they, I mean like, mainstream archaeology and stuff. They thought it was the Bronze Age, which is about 3,000 or 2,000 BC, 1,000 BC, around there. Not around the time when the Roman Empire started, before the Roman Empire was an empire. So about 1,000, 1,500. But I think it goes back further now, just because they started finding all of these new like tools and this organic material that might date them further back. Actually, not really might. To me, it's a smoking gun, but it still has to go through that whole slow academic process of skepticism and criticism and all that stuff. And another reason why they didn't really get to the bottom of this was lack of funding and lack of bodies just doing the legwork. Because there's a lot of these Crannogs out there, and there's a lot of them out there that haven't been discovered, and even more out there that have been discovered but haven't been tested. So in the article that I did about the Scottish Crannogs, they only did about like 15 or 16 of them. Mm-hmm. And there's hundreds of them out there. So
what is your sense, that it's back to like Göbekli Tepe era then?
It could be. Right now, I think it's probably more, probably 5,000, 6,000 BC, around there.
Yeah. Okay. So in the middle of that.
Yeah. Basically around the time when they started adopting
agriculture.
Agriculture and large scale agriculture and tools and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fascinating. So Darren's got the map up here. The extent of land. Oh, wow. So that was the extent of land to 10,000 years ago. So I pictured more of it being below the UK, but I mean, I guess, so that's the land goes. So there's a whole bridge there between France and the UK.
Yeah. And you bet that those people were active people. They had trade routes. And that part of the reason why I started my channel was because people will read, they had trade routes, and think nothing of it. I'm trying to fill in the holes in their, I don't want to say the logic because it sounds condescending, but I'm going to say it anyway. Holes in their logic that fails to comprehend what that means. Like, in order to have a large scale trade route the size of Doggerland and probably bigger, a lot of shit had to happen for that to become popular and accepted in their world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they had to have like a code of laws. There were probably wars fought over that territory because they found weapons and stuff like that. There had to have been advent of culture. There had to have been some sort of religion, basically motivations for them to even trade in the first place. So, there's a lot of moving parts going on there, and part of my channel is not to demystify and discover new things, but to suss out the stuff that's already out there. You know what I mean? To untangle the cord, so to speak, and to really get people straight on what's out there and the implications of such discoveries.
Yeah. So while we're in that area, did you look at the Azores at all, and what the extra or 300 to 400 feet less of water would look like over there?
Yeah, I've looked into the Azores Plateau, west of the Pillars of Heracles, right? Spain, the Strait of Gibraltar. And yeah, there really was a landmass there. Now, whether Plato was referring to that as Atlantis is up for debate. Some people think he was talking about America as Atlantis because that also fits the description of west of the Pillars of Heracles and stuff. But the thing about the Azores is there's a lot of interesting biodiversity there. There's a lot of extinct fauna there that wasn't anywhere else in the world. Now that it's about 400, some parts of it are more shallow, but now that it's in this depth, where it's a very unique depth where there's just enough sunlight that can get down for stuff to grow, but also there's stuff there that is left over that could have only lived when it was above a certain height. If you guys get what I'm saying. Kind of like think of a coral reef, right? A coral reef is just like that, where it's kind of like a timestamp of all the fossils in the coral reef. They must have lived at a certain depth. So then the only thing you need to do if you're a researcher is to check the last time it was at that depth. And then there you go. You have a timeline. You have a working timeline there that you can branch off from and make, crazy hypotheses or whatnot.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I haven't thought of it America's Atlantis before. That kind of would coincide with some of the stuff that Hancock's coming out with and some of the recent studies. And, the mounds in a lot of ways seem to be maybe some sort of re-representation of something they were trying to do that they were doing before as a culture, right? Like, after the shit hits the fan, the people are trying to redo what they were doing with, I probably wasn't too far removed from what happened in Egypt and places like that. But that's interesting because I've been hearing rumblings now that in the next few years it's going to come out that there's a site in Montana that could prove to be, the same thing, 100,000 years old.
Yeah, I've heard about weird stuff about Montana, and not just that the fact that it was one of the sites of the deluge and the Younger Dryas boundary and Missoula and stuff like that. But I've heard them finding like dinosaur bones there and stuff that's like impossibly old, like millions and millions of years old there. And that place is definitely worth. If I was a young and up and coming archaeologist or researcher, I would definitely look into that place for sure.
You are.
Yeah, you're only a few states away.
Yeah, I'm not that far.
We could meet there.
Let's meet there, and then we'll have a contact at the cabin there, or contact at the Crannog.
Yeah. I love it.
We could do that. That could happen because we got a Montana guy that could help us out with that. Shout out to Brandon, friend of the show. We make sure we had everything we needed to have a proper contact at the cabin. I'll tell you what, you could probably get some fucking proper cabins in Montana. You get something like down by the edge of Yellowstone and head around all that shit. That'd be gnarly, man. Our next one's in Utah.
Where? Bryce Canyon? Around there?
In between Bryce and Zion, so we can hit both.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds like a good time. I might be able to make that.
Sweet.
For sure. I wanted to come to the first one, but I just couldn't just because of work and stuff like that. That was a bummer. But
that'd be great.
Yeah, I definitely want to make the next one.
Check out contact@thecabin.com.
Let's do it.
All the info's there. My newest masterpiece. So what's your before we jump off coastlines, what's the highlight if you had to pick like one thing? Is there anything cool in Antarctica, or like what's like bam, what's the best part? Like obviously the Bimini Road and all that would have been above board. We're talking 400 feet, right?
Not
Right,
everywhere.
roughly
Not everywhere,
400.
I don't think, though.
Not everywhere. There are some places like New Zealand was never connected to Australia. You know, it was part of another strip of land there. But one place that is interesting was Sundaland, which is basically now New Guinea and Indonesia. And I'm sure you guys have heard of Mount Toba.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in Sundaland. And although that was 70,000 years ago, still that place is a huge, it's very significant for a lot of reasons. And it's connected to the Denisovans. I'm sure you guys had Bruce Fenton on not too long ago.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
Yeah, friend of the show, Bruce Fenton. We're going to do a contact at the castle with that fellow one day.
That guy is super interesting, and he knows a lot about this as well. He knows more about it because he knows about the culture and all the the local legends and stuff like that talks about this. And basically, he is right. When he says the natives of that area talk about a bloodline that's uniquely their own.
Wow.
In their culture, they say that they come from the Pleiades and stuff. But if you look at their genetics, first of all, they have a section of their genetics is completely unique and it's not like anybody else found in the world. The Polynesians share this as well. But when you boil it down, they all belong to this one group. And the hypothesis now is that they belong to the Denisovans. Because the Denisovans, they came from Denisova Cave in Russia, or Siberia, which is now part of Russia. And they traced their genetics. Apparently, they migrated all the way from Siberia. They crossed the Tibetan Plateau, which is where freaking the tallest mountains are, like K2 and Mount Everest. They climbed that. They stayed in the Tibetan Plateau long enough to leave their mark because they found these weird tools. The Tibetans have this weird gene that are traced to the Denisovans that allowed them to live at ungodly heights, altitude, like the altitude gene. And these people kept going. They went down through Asia. They left their mark in China. And I'll get to China later, but basically the Chinese are holding a lot of evidence close to the vest. They don't disclose a lot of their artifacts. They don't disclose a lot of stuff. They handpick a lot of the researchers that aren't Chinese to go in there. So there's a lot of mystery there, but the Denisovans are connected to China. Well, anyway, they go through China, they go to Southeast Asia, and then they make it to freaking Indonesia. And then now we have these people who are talking about this bloodline and that they come from the Pleiades, and then their people went through like trials and tribulations to get to where they are today. And then not only that, they have, I did this previous video of one of the oldest stone monuments, period. And it's not even a monument. It's more of like a shelter, a stone shelter. And it's about, at the very least, 60,000 years old. And it might be older, just like Göbekli Tepe's date is, the date is based off of just some organic shit they found nearby. So, because you can't date stone. So it might be way older. At the very least, it might go back 100,000, 200,000 years. Because that's about the time when the Denisovans would have went through that way, based on all the stuff that they found.
Well, didn't they also go the other way to, isn't that where the native North Americans come from, is the Siberians? Aren't they connected somehow?
I'm so glad you asked that, Graham. Okay, so I did not an interview. I did a video on Siberia and the genetics, and there's so much going on there. It's so confusing.
And how do you even keep up?
Convoluted.
Yeah.
I block out time, man. I have a lot of stuff going on. You know what I mean? Like I block out time to walk my dogs. I block out time to do these videos. You know, I block out time to make dinner. You know, all this stuff. So I'm very disciplined when it comes to that, I guess. But anyway, so the Siberia thing. So the original thought was that there were these, let's call them Proto-Siberians or whatever. These people who were connected to the Native Americans, right? The Native Americans we know today. Well, that was long speculated. It was never proven. It was just an assumption that they made. And there was a lot of circumstantial evidence, but no smoking gun evidence until very recently they found a skull. Okay, so this skull was found in, I forget the name, but it's where Beringia was. If you guys know what Beringia is, we go back to coastlines. It's basically the land bridge that connected Siberia and Alaska.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, they found this skull nearby. It wasn't underwater, but it was nearby where Beringia would have been on the Siberian side of the land bridge. Anyway, that long story, because it's really convoluted, that skull connected the current modern Native Americans we know today with the genetics of not only Siberians, but the first Siberians. So there's this isolated group with this now extinct genetics that were living in Siberia at a time when Siberia was habitable. It's not the frozen tundra that it is now. It was a place where you could live. There were a lot of megafauna there. It was plentiful. It was good climate to grow stuff. So people were having a good time there.
Darren, your ancestors were hunting giant beavers in the Siberia.
That's right. Well, your ancestors were hiding underground like a motherfucker.
Dire beavers, man. There's like
big old
these monsters are real, man. You were that one with your giant wolf head that you had in the video too. Like these are like dire wolves, man. Right. That's where it comes from.
Oh yeah.
You're getting all D&D. Here, I see where this is going, and I'm reeling it in before we get there. So the Denisovans, then, are we looking at them? Because if we're talking about 100,000 years ago, does that mean that we're going to find out that maybe a bunch of this shit in North America is maybe from the Denisovans as well, and they had some sort of global culture? Is that what you're getting at?
Maybe, or maybe they were confined to just Siberia and that part of Denisova Cave, and they were just living among a bunch of other human species. Like think about that game World of Warcraft. There's a bunch of different races and stuff. There's like orcs and ogres and like goblin type of creatures.
Yeah, here we go.
I'm telling you, it might have been.
That's what I'm thinking. This is genetic memory. That's why the Lord of the Rings and all these things are so deep within us. Like why we love them so much. It's this. That's some of that is the way it was back then. Giants.
It sounds insane,
giants and dragons and magic.
Absolutely. I mean, have you guys heard of the I forget which Native American tribe, but it's somewhere around Nevada now. I forget the name, but they had a legend.
Navajo?
It might have been Navajo. I don't know. But apparently their legend was, their origin was that they fought a war with giants with red hair.
Yeah.
And as the story
double rows
went,
of teeth.
Yeah. Oh, you guys know what I'm talking about then, right? They killed them, and they killed the last of them. They backed the last of them into a cave, and this is a legend. They rained down arrows and fire on them until all of them were dead.
Holy.
Well, they find this cave near Red Rocks, near Vegas, and they find giant skulls with red hair and a bunch of arrowheads scattered all over the ground. It's like, what the hell? How do you explain that? And then what happened was they took those and they locked them away in the museum, and they're only accessible, not to the public, but by people upon request. So you have to request it if you're like in academia or something, and then you got to get like permission to actually hold them and look at them and stuff like that.
Wow.
We should
But they really do exist.
I think there's giants. I think, the Nephilim was a thing. I can get on board with that. They were leftovers from when the Earth was smaller. There's less gravity. So those giants are having a hard time, right? That's why we was able to fuck them up. Because a giant should be, bigger, stronger, faster, everything than you. But they were having trouble with the extra gravity from the Earth getting bigger. They're slow, sluggish like Graham.
I think you're onto something there.
Oh, I love it.
Fits into the theory. Fits in. My growing theory of everything.
Be careful, man. Some grad student's going to hear this and write their paper up.
That's good. This is all Creative Commons.
Open source.
Grimerica.ca/support. We need that, though. That needs to happen. And then you can put it in your paper.
So what about coastline? I mean, I don't really want to get off that topic because I'm fascinated by all this stuff, especially the genetic mapping or evolution from where we really came from. Like we should just get our DNA tested.
I'm not doing that.
Just so we know like how much.
Then I'm gonna get fucking denied insurance in a couple of years. I really don't think that's a good idea.
That's scary.
Yeah,
that's a possibility.
I think that's the business model. That's why they can give you $100 DNA test, because they're gonna backdoor and they'll say it's anonymous.
Yeah.
But then there'll be a leak.
Yeah, it's all big data, man. Yeah.
So what about
It's
what about the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico then, as far as like this this coastal change? I'm always wondering, because you see how Cuba and the Dominican go around and the Central America there, like that had to be so different with 400 feet less water.
Definitely.
Are they mapping that out in this new paradigm?
The research that I read, they are probably going to get to it, but I haven't read anything that indicated that they've gotten that far. Because right now there's so much to map out that they've done. Like they're doing Doggerland, they're doing Sundaland, they're doing parts of Japan where Yonaguni is. Yeah. If you guys have heard of that, yeah. And the Beringia. Yeah, but here's what I'll have to say about the Gulf of Mexico is the Gulf of Mexico probably more than likely still had water in it, but that's because it got hit by the like 65 million years ago got hit by something that killed all the dinosaurs. So that giant crater is still there. It's just underwater now. So about 2 million years ago, it still would have been a crater with water in it and stuff. But the stuff like the Bimini Road and Cuba, Dominican Republic, all that stuff more than likely was connected in some way to all the other islands there.
Yeah.
Maybe a shorter trip from Africa too.
Oh yeah, don't get me started on that, man. Because
no, I just got you started. Because I want to see what you think. Because I've been having some crazy ideas about that lately.
Well, I don't think they're crazy. I don't think you're crazy. I think it's crazy to think that the ocean was a barrier to the ancient people. Mountains and deserts were barriers, not the ocean. The ocean is like a highway. It's like a conveyor belt that could, if you just can get a seagoing vessel that could stay afloat, and if you could get enough food to survive the voyage, then it's no problem to hug the coastlines and get to where you need to go. I mean, that was one of the theories about the people from Siberia who came to South America, and even California. We have an island or a group of islands called the Channel Islands. And when the water level was lower, then it was one giant island. And they found that these people were hugging the coastline and just riding the waves all the way down to Tierra del Fuego, eventually, the bottom tip of South America. So when they say the Polynesians or the Siberians had a seagoing vessel, I believe it. I mean, it's totally possible. I mean, why would they? Think about Easter Island, man. Easter Island is such a speck now. It's not. It wouldn't even come up on Google Maps if it weren't, or Google Earth if it weren't for the little graphic that they have that indicates, like that little arrow that indicates that it's Easter Island. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hard to imagine that a group of people just ran into Easter Island, and also now they're finding a quarry that's under the water there that's not even that deep. And then they're suspecting that the stones that created those giant heads that, that's become your logo were from the quarry underneath the water now.
Yeah, it's like 30 meters deep or something like that. I've seen that.
So that would bring that would bring that age back again to before the Younger Dryas.
And the carvings are eerily similar to the ones at Göbekli Tepe.
Absolutely, where they have their fingers like neatly folded in front of their navel, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. I've been entertaining the idea lately that a bunch of black people came over from Africa on boats way before, and that there was I heard Hotep Jesus talking about it on Joe Rogan, and I was just like, that makes a ton of sense to me. That, there was a bunch of black people in the Caribbean and in the southern of North
they were already there.
Of North America already. They were already there. And, they just, that the whole slave trade thing was like a part of fake history because they don't want black people to have any sovereignty over the land or whatever you would call that.
Yeah, there's something to that, definitely. Like the Olmec heads, they look like they're from their facial features look like they're African. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Those giant heads in Central America. Yeah, like that. They don't even know how old those things really are. So, who knows? Maybe that, what's his name? Hotep Jesus? Yeah, he might be up onto something.
Hotep Jesus. I think he's coming on the show soon. And well, plus that Caribbean probably would have been like, it's not like you're hitting islands. That's probably all one big giant landmass at that time.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, I don't know why that would sound ridiculous to people.
Yeah, I mean, look at it. It's just, it's right there. It's like a big, if you take 400 feet of water out of that and it's all connected.
Yeah.
So that reminds me of the Catalina Island too, off of LA there. So is that part of the Channel Islands there?
No, it's the Channel Islands are more north of Catalina.
Just a bit. Oh yeah, there they are. Yeah, they're a little bit north. Yeah, Catalina's here because that's a mystery too. We got to go to Catalina one day. Contact the Catalina.
Absolutely.
That's the UFO hotspot. There's electromagnetic disturbances going on there. I think that's where the red orbs come from, Darren.
Red orbs?
Yeah, orange orbs.
I thought those were at those down in the Brown Mountains.
No, they come from 3 spots in the ocean. Catalina's one of them.
Huh. The more you know. Did you know about these orbs?
Are you talking about the Battle of LA?
No,
the alien invasion?
No, but maybe that's got something to do with Catalina. I don't know.
You're just making shit up.
We had Terry Ray on who talked about the orange orbs, and he tracked them with all the research and all the data that they had from all the reports, and they came out of 3 areas of the ocean. Like there was, trends, right? They come out of Catalina Island, and there's one I think in a couple in the Gulf of Mexico as well, and they would. They seem to be traveling out of these underwater bases and then traveling around 9 to 10 at night seemed to be the time. And they were traveling in the same direction a lot of times. And then there's a whole bunch of other stories from Catalina too. I mean, that's a whole mystery in itself.
Fucking Catalina wine mixer. No, nothing.
No, nothing.
Interesting.
Do you think it could be like military or something? Like some sort of like Nazi technology or something like that.
Yeah, underground bases, man, from way back.
USOs.
It could.
Yeah.
Or some like underground civilization. That might be where white people came from. They're like white people escaped from living underground. Like an offshoot, a broken civilization from the underground people that Admiral Byrd ran into.
We were hiding from the Nephilim back then?
Exactly.
So what's your theory about white people?
Well, I was reading this stuff about have you guys heard of the Scythians? They're step people. Yeah, so apparently they're people
good at shooting bows on horses, I think, aren't they?
They're like Mongols?
They're basically that type of lineage, but they were way before the Mongols. And they were not only were they good at horseback and stuff, they were good at not being conquered by other people. And they were good at preserving their culture. And another thing they were good at was spreading their genetics into Europe, essentially. They were humping and pumping, you know what I mean? And they were spreading their genetics. And apparently those people are basically, when you trace the lineage of the modern Europeans, especially the people from the Caucasus Mountains, they trace to this tribe of Scythian people.
Wow.
And when you look at historical records, like the Romans, they never messed with them. They described them as some of the most formidable people ever. Like period, the end. Like there's no way that their legions could contest with them for the reasons you mentioned, that they had mobility and they could attack while backing away from you. So they could keep that distance where you're charging and they'll just back up and then turn around and shoot you. And so because of that alone. And that culture that they had, this I don't want to call it nomadic, but this agrarian culture where they didn't really stay in one spot. They would put these planned migrations around their territory, and they just lived like that for thousands and thousands of years until one day, they, just like all other things, they started fragmenting into smaller tribes, and then you get stuff like the Mongols where they just get so aggressive that they take over everybody, and then it becomes this huge generation of just killing everybody. And then it's no coincidence that once Genghis Khan died and his son died, that was pretty much the end of the Mongols, because they didn't have that same leadership, that same bloodlust that was there before. So so it's a very interesting snapshot in history that not a lot of people know about, but people suspect that when you read between the lines of history, especially like these ancient historians like Plutarch and Herodotus and like these guys from the Mediterranean, they speak of these people who are sometimes they refer to them as the Northmen or the people from the east or these people, the mountain people or whatever, the barbarians. Some people think that they weren't just referring to people from Germany, that those people from Germany branched off from the Scythians, and that's why they had very similar cultural ideals and similar ways of living pre-Roman times. And it's also the reason why it would explain that the Romans had such a hard time of keeping Germania or modern day Germany in check. I mean, Julius Caesar could barely even do it. So, yeah.
How far back are the Scythians? Are we talking about with the Scythians and like 2000 BC kind of thing, or 2 to 3000 BC, or?
Well, if you want to just go by the hard evidence, yeah, like around there, maybe even further back. But who knows? Because again, they were really good at not being conquered and not even being seen, really. So they might go back even further because the earliest accounts referred to them as already fully formed and developed people, not an up and coming people. So they must have been there well before that these surviving documents were there.
Where are you talking about in location? Like the Black Sea, around that area? Like
around the Black Sea, the steppe.
Yeah.
The Caucasus Mountains around there, a little bit north from there too.
Where's the Caucasus again?
It's around where you said like the Black Sea, north of Iran.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then those people just were hard people, and eventually, you know, if you're a group of people who are uncontested for a while, and you have access to all these resources, and you have mobility, and you can basically you're unconquerable, then yeah, you're gonna part of their culture. Actually, a part of their culture that I forgot to mention is they send young men to pair off with women, and other young men, like these platoons. And they would go out and just conquer and multiply and just keep going. And until they got to Germany. And that's who they think were with the Celtic people at the time, the people who were there, who occupied Scotland and all that stuff. Once the ice caps receded, those were some of the first people to occupy that place. And that's why I don't know if you guys ever heard the connection between the Irish people and the people of the Caucasus Mountains. Their genetics are strongly linked. And they might think that's because the Scythians, they just went that far out. The problem with the Scythians was they never had national identity. They never identified as, okay, this is the country of Scythia. No, they were just a conglomeration of people who had mobility and a culture, but no national identity. And part of their culture was to divide and conquer, essentially. And then until they lost their identity as Scythians and just identified as, okay, I guess we're Germans now because they occupied this area. And even, the word Germany or the word Germania in Latin means like a seed, like a germ from a seed. And that's what they referred to these people as, because they were just so prolific at not only dividing, but spreading their culture and maintaining that strength. So it's a really interesting thing. Yeah, absolutely. That's where it came from. And I'm going to do a video on that later.
Oh, cool.
Sorry, go ahead.
So going back to the Ice Age and when the glaciers were receding from the northern Europe, the UK kind of thing, was because some of the world wasn't, I still don't have this clear in my head, like some of the world wasn't really affected the same way North America and Northern Europe was, right? Like the area of the Red Sea, Egypt, and the Mediterranean, was that still fairly consistent throughout that Ice Age? Because the Ice Age, it's not like, I think people have in their head that during the last Ice Age, or the glacial, what's the word?
Glacial maximum?
Yeah, that the whole world was just ice, like it was, but it wasn't, right? It was just...
No.
So there was lots of it that was just the way it is, not now, but you know what I mean? Like it wasn't as affected,
Well, the Red Sea was affected. It was still the Red Sea, but there are islands in the middle of the Red Sea. So there's this new theory come. Oh, it's not really new, but it was proposed when the people left Africa. They went through what's now, I guess, Egypt and Saudi Arabia.
Sinai?
They went through.
Yeah.
Well, there was along with that theory was another proposed theory where they crossed the Red Sea. Now, the reason why that theory got shot down was because they're like, well, the Red Sea's too thick. There's no way that they got across. Well, when the sea levels were lower, there were like stepping stone islands that cut the distance like 75%. So when you're talking, let's say 100 kilometers or whatever, it was more really they had to cross like 16 kilometers. So in that way, it became feasible that they did go through there. And guess what? They did some excavations in that area of the Red Sea. They find remnants of human activity there as well.
Wow.
Why is that there? Yeah, it's just like, again, it's not just this one cookie cutter path that some academic, proposed 100 years ago. That's not the only explanation. There's probably a bunch of explanations that have either been shot down or suppressed or not even thought about yet.
Yeah, that theory also applied in the other area, what you talked about in that video, the intervisibility, where there was, people are like, well, how did they cross all the way from Australia to, what was it? Was it Papua New Guinea or whatever? But you were mentioning that there's that intervisibility theory where there's all these islands that are in between. So just because you can't see Australia doesn't mean that you're not going to get there, because you can see the island that's in between there. And people were traveling island to island back then when the coasts were different.
Absolutely, Graham. You're right about the intervisibility thing, because just put yourself in their shoes for a second. I mean, if you're a scout or whoever from this presumably nomadic tribe, and your main task is to look for like a suitable shelter to raise your family, a place that probably will have food, and basically a place that will sustain you. Assuming that they don't have a spyglass or GPS or anything, they have to use dead reckoning, which is basically what they see. And if you go back then, if you could see an island in the distance that's within boating range, then you're going to go. Like somebody's going to go, right? It might not be person A, but it might be person B. So that just by going by human ingenuity and human curiosity, they're gonna island hop until they find something like Australia, like what Graham was talking about. That even though they can't see America from island A, if they get to island X, then it becomes visible, and then there you go, history is made, right? Yeah. So a lot of academics failed to think about this. It didn't occur to them, and I don't blame them. But it's something that is easily overlooked. But once it's brought to your attention, it makes a lot of sense.
Where do you want to go?
There's just fucking islands everywhere, right?
Absolutely.
Do you want to get into the Titicaca stuff?
What exactly are you talking about? There's a lot going on.
I see something on here that says ritual artifacts found in Titicaca reveal details of ancient Tiwanaku culture.
Oh, right. Yeah, that was a while ago, I think. Lake Titicaca is weird because
there's an alien face there, isn't there?
I don't know. What do you mean an alien face?
Isn't Titicaca the one that's got like all the 108 different faces, or it's got the wall of all the different faces, which seem to be like all the different cultures from around the world, and then one looks like an alien?
Man, I don't know. Tell me more about it, though. It sounds interesting.
I don't know if that's Titicaca. That might be the one that's close by. What's the one that's close by it again? I can't remember Well, the border goes right through Titicaca, eh? The border of Bolivia and Peru. Huh.
Yeah.
Tiwanaku, Bolivia.
Yeah, that's what I was
Tiwanaku.
thinking. Tiwanaku, yeah.
That's not the same thing?
No, there's one there's one in Titicaca as well.
Isn't that shit all in like the same place?
That's very close,
pretty much. It's all like the
but
same.
If you go there, it's not necessarily like you're going to both. I thought we talked to some people recently that hadn't gone to one but went to the other. So
it says Tiwanaku has a card depiction of every race. Greys are the most popular alien. How could they do this thousands of years ago?
Man, I don't know. I've never heard that, but that sounds really fascinating.
I've seen it on Ancient Aliens. I've seen it on Ancient Aliens, season 1.
That
Before
was the
it
best
went
season.
the fuck off the rails hard. Season 3, it took a hard turn off the rails, in my opinion.
Season 3? And now they're
By
on season
4
10 or
for
whatever?
sure.
Huh?
By 4 for sure.
So what are some of the other things that you want to do videos on coming up then that you're researching? I mean, because it's pretty cool. You got a good variety of topics.
Yeah, man. I'm one thing that I'm really obsessed with Siberia now. There's so much there. There's so much potential in Siberia just because it's so different now from what it used to be. You know what I mean? It was almost one of the epicenters of human activity of the Pleistocene. And there must be so much stuff there. Like I did very recently, I did a video about the Siberian Birdman.
That was cool. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And I've confirmed that it's not a hoax either. At first, when I saw the pictures, I'm like, this looks fake. And then I started looking into it and I started reading some more stuff and it seems pretty legit. What they found was it was basically this culture there that didn't really know anything about, but there were there were just burials. That's it. There were just burials that were they were buried with all kinds of jewelry and all this stuff that indicates that they believed in an afterlife, but that's it. They didn't really know anything else. And then they find this Birdman who had not only these Birdman clothes that look like from like an M. Night Shyamalan movie, but also like these spectacles. Like he had glasses, like these creepy looking glasses and stuff. And that's what made me think it was fake because it looked just like a comic book character, you know, like it looked like it was inspired by like some villain or something.
Yeah, some native ad thing or some viral ad campaign.
Yeah, and then they found this guy or two guys that were buried there, and the way that they were buried, like their positioning was really weird. Like their head was like down, like into their chest cavity. And then they also found two children underneath them, like a few feet underneath them. And now they don't even know if those children had anything to do with those guys and where they came from. And it's still an ongoing thing. There's not a lot of a data that's come out yet because it was pretty much freshly discovered a few months ago. But yeah, this whole Birdman of Siberia thing is just like fueled my interest already. It was already I was already interested, but now it's even more so. And then you got like people in Finland who mixed with these Proto-Siberians I was telling you about, and the Finns have a culture, a really interesting origin culture as well that's very similar to the people in Australia. Not that they come from the Pleiades or anything, but just like their origins, they're similar in the fact that they came from another place, essentially. And there's like an identity. Like when I came out with that video, I got a lot of mixed mixed comments because there are a contingent of Finns who identified as fully European. They believe that, yeah, we're people who just came from the Nordic countries and they followed the coast and they lived off of there. And then there's another contingent of people that are accusing Group A, the first group that I mentioned, of suppressing their real identity. So there's definitely smoke there. I haven't sussed everything out yet because there's so much that like the Aqua Terra thing came in and I just couldn't ignore that. But there's a lot there. And that's one of my most popular videos, that Finland video. And it's actually a really controversial subject.
Huh.
Yeah. Really interesting.
What's your feeling on that then? How does it, like, looking at all this Bruce Fenton stuff and all the Denisovan stuff, what's your sense on what happened there with Homo sapiens way back when?
Well, it's linked to Homo erectus. Now, Homo erectus is supposedly not the oldest member of genus Homo, but we have the most evidence of them. They're the oldest that we have a substantial amount of fossils on, if that makes sense. And they go back about 2.5 million years ago. And remember earlier I said that the Pleistocene is about 2.2 million years ago, the onset?
Yeah.
And the Pleistocene just might as well be called like the age of Homo, basically. Because Homo erectus is found everywhere in Africa and a lot of it in China. So we might be if we're just I mean, we're on the record, obviously, but just personally, if I had to guess, I would say that Homo erectus was probably this the seed race or something that we all originate from, because just from the evidence, because they're the oldest, the most widespread. And then just like the Scythians, like I mentioned earlier, once you think of like a tree trunk, right? You have like a tree trunk and then it spreads out. I think that's basically what happened with Homo erectus. They started in maybe one or maybe two spots, and they branched out so far that eventually they became, once they got to the other side, they became different people, different species.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think Homo erectus is the key to knowing our origins and what the fuck happened to us during that time.
But when you say through that time, you mean lots of time, right? Not just
2.2 million years at the very least.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And of course, we were not going to find anything written or anything back then. So the best thing we can do is just find bones and just try to piece together what the fuck was going on. Like tools is a big one. Fire. Like the only thing I can think of are just stuff that's really hard to date. Even charcoal is really hard to date past a certain point, you know? Yeah. And that's another thing about my channel is not only do I delve into these mysteries, I also like to spend time on dating techniques. Like I talked about LiDAR, which a bunch of people have talked about now, like this laser imaging where you need to cut down a bunch of trees anymore to map the landscape. You can just forego all that. And then a lot of other like radiocarbon dating. I that's not new, but a lot of people don't really know why it's faulty after a certain point. So I talked about that. And that has to do with half-lives of carbon and stuff like that. And then all these other types of techniques that are, like I mentioned the Channel Islands earlier. I did a video about, not strictly about that, but part of that video was about this technique that these archaeologists were using to map the floor there, essentially, which goes to the Aqua Terra paradigm that I was talking about. So yeah, understanding these techniques and what's possible, I'm talking about possible in the modern day, will really help people who are on the periphery who don't really read this stuff. It will help them understand not only the complexity of what we're dealing with, but also it'll help them imagine solutions to see like what we can do to get closer to the truth. And that's basically what my channel is all about. It's just like I like to call it like a comprehension check, just to make sure they understand the weight of what they're reading, because anybody can read a headline and make a conclusion based on the headline, but it takes real attention span, like a good focused attention span, and like a familiarity with the topic to really get the gravity of the situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. We need people like you to take that information that's out there already and put it into a different format where people can imagine the future and the possibilities of finding out more about this stuff. Because then and we're all connected, right? And there's our thoughts are things, and we all go. And so as the more of us start imagining these things, they will come to fruition. You know, these the ways we're studying the water and all these different things. I mean, everything's happening so fast too. So it's great to see, another way to digest this information, because there's a lot of it out there that the paradigm's changing and we don't even know it yet,
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And you guys are a big part of it too, man. You guys are like the amplifier for people who have a small voice, and who, but they might have creative insights and very unique insights. So yeah, you guys are awesome for sure.
Oh, thanks. Grimerica is okay. We are we're the shit. All right. I'll give you that. Most of it's a community. It's the shit. The Grimerica community is the shit.
What you pulling up there, Darren?
I'm looking at the severed wolf head from his YouTube page there.
It's pretty much a dire
I wonder what else they'll pull out of the fucking permafrost up there, eh? Because did that thing get its head cut off or what?
Well, that's the thing, man. Like, why is his head so cut cleanly off like that? They don't really know. They haven't really explained it. They haven't addressed it. But they know that thing's like, what was it, like 40 inches or something crazy like that? Like the head itself is the size of like a pretty, respectable sized dog now. And that's the fucking head. So, what else? Like, and presumably they were roaming in packs. So imagine a pack of those things just roaming the landscape in Siberia. I mean,
a pack of super wolves just hunting you.
Yeah.
The severed head is 16 inches long.
Oh yeah, 16 so like 40 centimeters or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big wolf head.
I put the bite down on you. I mean, leaving them to the wolves had a whole different expression fucking a few thousand years ago.
Absolutely. And then once they sequence that DNA, we'll start to really see what, like, where dogs came from, especially, you know, because even dogs right now are a mystery too. They're not sure. That the explanation right now is kind of hazy at best, you know.
That they came from gray wolves?
That they only came from gray wolves, yeah.
Yeah, that's weird. That
is really weird.
It's kind of like us too, though. I was going to ask you about, you know, the Homo erectus and what you're saying about, you know, like 2.2 million years ago. Was there a genetic intervention from aliens or anything like that? Is that part of your, you know, your theory or your speculation that we were, you know, somehow modified or?
I don't know about like an actual alien coming from like space. I don't know, because I try not to go into waters where there's no like real like hard evidence.
Mm-hmm.
But I do have something that does have to do with aliens, and it's like Eureka moments, like thoughts. Like we don't really understand thoughts and like inspiration, right?
Mm-hmm.
That very well could be alien, you know. That somehow, some way, maybe some ethereal, I guess for lack of a better term, spirit could have somehow entered the biomass of the planet, and somehow, now stay with me here, somehow hijacked some sort of organism and evolved that way. I mean, that could easily be just as alien as like a gray alien coming down from Saturn or some shit, you know.
Yeah.
But again, like that's what I would have to think, because when you look at history, like look at fire. Fire is a good example. Where did they get the idea to start fire and harness it? You know, like that's not. I feel like, to me, that's not something that is random. Like a lightning strike and getting fire that way seems like it could be random, but maintaining the fire and developing a way of starting it, and then learning how to cook food, and then knowing that a seed could turn into a plant and you can cultivate it, like all that stuff that requires some sort of like knowledge base. I don't think that is haphazard. So there must be, at some point in history, someone must have had that knowledge, or someone must have had that Eureka moment. And how did they get to that point? Well, maybe that's where the alien theory could come in, whether it's a being, an organic being, or just, you know, a thought. So,
yeah, it makes me think of that last episode. We did a couple episodes with the Resonance Foundation guys, and I really got a visual finally of like a thought, how it could take form in a shape, in a sacred geometrical shape, or with an electromagnetic, you know, signature in a way which could resonate with, you know, another one. I mean, entangle with another one somewhere, or
absolutely.
I just feel like there's the way that they're starting to show how we're connected scientifically.
I didn't smoke a whack of DMT. You'll have a real good idea how those thoughts could be aliens.
Sacred geometry. Yeah, when I think of
sacred geometry, representations of fucking things.
Yeah, I think of like mathematics. I mean, mathematics now, algebra was around millions of years ago. Like it never changed. It was always there, right? So what the hell is math?
Maybe.
You know, it's not changing, right? We don't know. Some people think it's just like a man-made creation, but I don't think so. I think because geometry exists, then you have to assume that mathematics also existed as well. So that in and of itself could be alien. You know, who knows?
Yeah, that's awesome.
The mathematics behind the reality of the universe is its own conscious thing, and it's God.
It could be. Yeah, I know. Logos. Yeah. Maybe that's what Logos.
It's a turtle. Yeah. We're all just turtles stacked up on top of each other.
Yeah. Turtles all the way down.
Yeah, I think it's just bigger turtles named Kali Yuga. Is that how that works?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sanskrit?
Like script.
Like a cycle. Like we're just in this endless cycle.
I can't remember. I can't even remember where I heard it, but it was mind blowing. It was like all these turtles were a different cycle of like hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah, I think that's like an old Chinese like proverb thing, isn't it? Like,
It's Sanskrit. It's in
Sanskrit. There we go.
scripts.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
What, should we get into anything else, or should we wrap it up, or what do you think? What do you want to do?
Are you asking me or Graham?
I'm asking you.
Oh,
I don't give a fuck what he wants to do.
man, I can go on and on. Like I can go. Like we can talk about pretty much any topic, but I guess what we could talk about now is the future, like what's on the horizon.
What are you gonna do next?
Yeah. So, well, I think we're gonna get close. We're gonna because the discoveries aren't just gonna stop; they're gonna keep going, and we're gonna get closer and closer to the truth. And I think we might, maybe even within our lifetime, if academia gets its shit together and the internet's still around, it might shut down. You never know. Assuming all that stuff is still going, then yeah, I think the light at the end of the tunnel is unlocking the migrations of the genetic drift or finding a fossil that might be another smoking gun that is, quote, the missing link linking one population of people to another. And ultimately, we might get all the way back to Homo erectus. And I mentioned earlier that the Chinese scientists, they hold a lot of that stuff close to their vest. And maybe one day they'll just they'll just release all that.
They'll say, "Here's how history really was, you people."
Or at the very least, a big chunk of the picture.
Yeah.
Or it might, all that stuff might be destroyed too. We don't really know. The communists really torched everything, and even their previous the artifacts of the dynasty before the rise of communism. And then a lot of the artifacts are in Taiwan. That the surviving ones are in Taiwan, which is basically the only part of China that isn't communist, basically. Which I shouldn't say. The Taiwanese people might get pissed if I say that they're part of China, but yeah, they escaped with all that.
Free Tibet.
Free Tibet, my friend.
Is Tibet
Absolutely.
part of Taiwan?
No.
No.
Tibet is way far away.
So China's fucking with Tibet and Taiwan?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, they're not really fucking with Taiwan. They just they don't want anyone to acknowledge that Taiwan is Taiwan. They want everyone to acknowledge that Taiwan's China. And that's why Trump got into trouble a couple years ago for tweeting out that shit about Taiwan, just naming them by name. He got all that shit. Yeah. So
we conquer them. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, but the future looks bright in terms of archaeology, guys. I think there's going to be a lot more down the pipe, and people like Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson and all like Bruce Fenton, all these guys, they're probably going to be exonerated within our lifetime. I think. Some people think that is too optimistic, but I don't. I think being pessimistic just isn't helpful. Especially when it comes to this. Like that, there's no time to be pessimistic. Tomorrow's not guaranteed. So that's basically why I started the channel not even a year ago, and I'm closing in on 200 episodes, and that's not because I'm trying to make money or anything. I don't make shit. I feel like literally I might not be here tomorrow, so I better get the shit out today.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very productive attitude to have. And it's hard to maintain that, it's hard to avoid burnout and stuff. But I think what keeps me going is that light at the end of the tunnel, because I'm very optimistic about the future. And I think everyone else should develop this interest. I think some people think it's useless knowledge, but understanding the past, to me, really, it sounds cliche, but it is the key to unlocking a better future. And
yeah, for sure. And you also start uncovering what's been lied about and what's been sort of hidden from us as well, which is important.
It's all fake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's where Darren's at these days. It's all fake. Yeah. The history's written by the winners, and you never know what.
It's all
the
fake.
Earth is hollow and flat at the same time.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't go that far.
Hollow.
I don't go that far. Let's reel it in.
At least it's got some caves and stuff.
It's got a small space at the center that's hollow, somewhere between 30 and 300 feet. Could be as big as 3 miles.
That's creating
where
matter.
hair production takes place. Matter is created. Finds its way to the surface.
Did you guys ever end up getting DoBeDoBeDo on?
Who's that? No.
No, we should
have him on. He reviewed the show. He gave us a 5-star review.
Okay. That's something.
I don't know if I want to go down that road again.
Yeah. That flat Earth thing is really, it's really toxic. I think it can
With
get toxic.
great power
Strange.
comes great responsibility.
Absolutely. But that would make for an interesting conversation for sure. Yeah,
He probably won't call me an idiot, so at least we'd have that.
No,
He
he
seems
strikes
like
me as
a
like a
very
pacifist.
polite young man,
Yeah.
like Graham.
Yeah.
Except Graham's an old man.
Graham looks great. What are you talking about?
He looks great for 50, doesn't he?
I guess he should
49.
grow out a beard.
49 in a week tonight. A week tomorrow.
Ooh, I have a little birthday bash.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm gonna give out Graham's phone number for his birthday.
He gets doxxed for his birthday. Thanks.
Right on. Well, can you give us all your social media handles and your YouTube channel name? Give us all that stuff so all these fucking fine folks can track you down.
And keep in
Absolutely.
touch too, because I'd really like to do this again, because you're hitting all these cool things that
We should
you're
get
very
you.
knowledgeable and you're very articulate and you talk about it well, and it's all the stuff we're interested in. So yeah, keep it up, and we should do this again, like semi regularly, every 9 months or something. Or
Yeah, we
Oh,
can
well,
get
thank
you
you,
on
guys.
the intros once in a while.
yeah, for new stuff. Yeah,
To give us
Yeah.
a little update.
Yeah.
Be dandy.
Absolutely.
and then meet at CAC one of these times. Contact at the castle or cabin or
Catacomb.
catacomb. That's
Yeah,
a good one.
Hey, Catacomb, that's pretty good. Yeah, thanks guys. It's very flattering. I mean, it's actually pretty surreal because I used to listen to you guys. I mean, I still do listen to you guys. I mean,
The fuck?
I mean, when I when I started listening to you guys about like 2013 around
Oh
there,
wow!
2014.
Holy shit!
Yeah, I mean, because I'm into a lot of this type of subject matter. It's been like that for a while,
Yeah.
and so now it's surreal to actually step foot in Grimerica.
That's
I mean, it's cozy here. I
that's
like
awesome.
it.
It's
Right
nice.
on,
It's
good.
fuzzy. It's warm. It's
I mean-
poor. We're a poor country, but that's
I'm-
going to change. 2019 is a
happy.
year.
I'm really happy you guys finally got a studio too.
Yeah,
That's
thanks.
really cool.
Yeah.
That's like my dream right there, to have my own studio. But right now I'm sharing a room with 2 dogs, and I mean, you got to start somewhere though, right?
That's right. You got to start somewhere. You keep at
But anyway,
it.
yeah, definitely. My social media, I guess, my YouTube and BitChute.com/the Jindo, or Twitter.com/the Jindo. Those are my 3 main, I guess you can say, media outlets. And DLive is something that I'm experimenting with. DLive.com/the Jindo, which is exclusively live streaming. I did a couple of live streams, but I just don't have the user base yet, or the viewership yet to like get that going. But that's down the hatch. Minds.com, I don't really use as much either. But if you want to follow me there, minds.com/the Jindo as well. But Twitter is probably the best way to, like, if you want to contact me, if you want to. Sometimes I get comments on YouTube, or someone will tweet me a really cool article. Hey, if you guys have a cool article, send it my way, and I'll tweet it out, and I probably will cover it too at some point if it's interesting enough. And I've had a few of those as well. So yeah, that about does it on my end though, in terms of plugging.
Right on.
Well, there you
buddy.
guys go. Go
Awesome.
check all that shit out. Give it a follow. Give it a like. Give it a share. Give it a subscribe. All that fun stuff. That's important.
Right on, buddy.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
That's
Nice
important.
to meet you.
Have you thought about doing it in a podcast form?
I was going to ask that.
Absolutely, I've thought about it. I've thought about doing interviews too. I had a few local professors. Like there's this physicist at UC Irvine. He was actually on Ancient Aliens. On the first season. I was contacting him, but I just felt like I'm not at that point yet. But yeah, eventually I'll get on iTunes and get like web hosting and get some episodes on iTunes as well. But for now it's just YouTube and BitChute. BitChute I have a lot of hope for, because there's no censorship or anything like that.
Yeah,
like I did it.
yeah,
I
that's
did an
gonna be-
episode on.
yeah.
I did an episode on the Bible, a couple episodes on the Bible, and I got like algorithmed. Like I got blacklisted. Like the viewership. Yeah. So I'm like, whoa, this is ridiculous. And I didn't even say anything controversial, So yeah, I don't know. I just think YouTube
You
is
can't be
thinking
pushing Christianity, buddy.
Yeah, that's trouble. Hey, if us
That's
dopes can
trouble.
do it, you can do it too. You can interview
Yeah.
anyone you want. It gets easier over the years. But no, I think it'd be a great podcast, you know, a little 20, 30-minute tidbits that get you up to date, all the stuff that these fucking guys should be reading, but they're not because they're just glossing over headlines as they're going through their feeds like robots. Sorry, guys, I love you, but don't do that. Do less of that. But yeah, I think it's a podcast there. If you need help with that, you shoot me a message.
Thank you, Darren. I will. Definitely.
All right, brother. Well, I guess we wrap it up there.
All right. Great to meet you guys.
You too, man.
Have a good rest of the day. It was an honor.
You
All right,
too.
that was fun.
Come
Flew
back
by.
anytime.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was a chat.
That was great.
Justin Jindo.
Super knowledgeable. That was fun. I love speculating about all that stuff too.
You just love speculating.
I do. No, and not only that, but just looking at, speculating in a way where you're following the evidence too, which is not really speculation, but.
Let's not get carried away. You just like speculating, period. Whether there's evidence, no evidence, doesn't matter.
I was looking at the world maps while we were talking, and I can't wait to, I don't know, travel somewhere like the Azores maybe.
The Azores?
Yeah. Azores.
It's definitely not the Azores. NASA and the Azores. Yeah, Justin Giefer, come back anytime, buddy. It was a fantastic chat. I'm pretty engaged with him on Twitter. Well, we don't really chat a lot, but I retweet a lot of his stuff because he's like tweeting out a lot of great stuff and he tags me in it, so it's easy for me to see and it comes across. At least I'm getting the headlines. That's why I need the podcast.
Yeah,
so when I see the headline, I got to listen to that episode. Instead of the YouTube videos. It's harder to sit down and watch a YouTube video. Of course, we love you guys that take time to do it. Love you guys that take time to download the show, listen to the show, review the show, and share the show even more. But you know who we love most of all? The guys who head over to and gals who head over to grimerica.ca/support and make a one-time donation, sign up for a Patreon, sign up for a PayPal, sign up for a Stripe, do something, support the show in some way, shape, or form financially because like Justin said, unfortunately, money makes the world go round. That's it.
Right on.
You're looking at me all weird. Are you hungry or something?
I haven't had dinner yet.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.
Feel like a broke down engine mama. Can't even find the words to speak. Feel like a broke down engine papa. It ran in my clouded mind all week. Blank stares from some of these people. Don't let the zombies get a hold of you. Blank stares from some of these people. Oh no, I've fallen through the cracks, landed on a camel's back. It was the last drink of the Pharaoh's treasure that broke the camel's back. Feel like a broke down engine mama. Can't even find the words to speak. I feel like a broke down engine papa. It rained in my cloudy minds all week. Feeling like a broke down engine mama. Can't even find the words to speak. Oh no, I have fallen through the cracks.